what are you guys doing for Father's Day?
Oh, my family's taking me to the Ticats home opener. It's on Sunday, June 16th, which is Father's Day.
Cool. We're doing the same. It's going to be a blast.
I'm really excited to see the new Stifley. It's almost 20,000 square feet of food, drink, and music awesomeness, including a live band before every game.
Yeah, they've got Cody Robinson performing there before the opener.
Hey, how'd you guys get tickets for that?
My wife got them at ticats.ca/tickets, or you can call 905-547-CATS.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is a Ticats This Week, built by Turkstra. Whatever your next home project is, build it better with Turkstra. Visit TurkstraLumber.com today.
Week 2 for the Tiger Cats coming up. This is Ticats This Week, and it's the three of us. Mike Daly, 8 interceptions in his career as a Tiger Cat. Luke Tasker, 35 touchdowns in his career as a Tiger Cat. And me, RJ Broadhead, I'll be calling my 62nd Tiger Cats game on Sunday. Are those stats right, guys? Do you believe me?
I thought I was 33 or 34. Did you put a fake one in there somewhere?
I don't know. I looked it up.
Okay,
I looked it up. I did a little research.
The internet doesn't lie. That's good.
But, see, I would have gone the other way if I were you, Luke. I would have said I had a couple of more, not a couple of less.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people ask me, and I can't remember exactly.
RJ, you should just compare. You should have taken my interceptions out and just compared touchdowns to touchdowns. You could have said, Luke 35 touchdowns, Mike Daly 1, and then just kind of kept going.
He knew. Wow, for those watching, RJ held up his finger before Mike even said 1. That's good.
I did see that, and I was looking at it this morning. Kind of a funny story with that is Luke with 35 touchdowns probably doesn't remember them all, but Mike, I'm guessing you 100% remember your 1 touchdown?
Yeah, I would hope so, or else that maybe that CTE might be setting in a little quicker than I thought. I don't know, but yeah.
Was it 2019, Mike?
Yeah, it's no 18.
Oh, 18, really? Nice.
I think so. Yeah, 18.
That's great.
Yeah. Luke remembers all his touchdowns. I'm sure he does. Come on.
I don't know. Maybe if you put on the if you told me what quarterback and what team it was against, I could explain the play probably.
Yeah, you're pretty smart guy, Luke. I bet you they're all in there. You're being modest right now.
I mean, I can think of some, but
hey, the CFL power rankings came out. Tiger Cats are ranked 9 out of 9. They got them in last. So remember this: we're heading into week 2, game 2 of the season, and the rankings had the Tiger Cats last. I'm going to make a bold prediction that ranking is not accurate, and they will be much better than last. So, what do you guys think?
Well, Montreal Alouettes, early in the season last year, were not favored in the East, or certainly not for Grey Cup contenders. And how many times is this league going to flip over on its head? Before November comes. So, no, I don't think that's accurate at all. And I think we have seen the team struggle, or at the points that we've seen the team struggle together, you and I, RJ, in the past 4 seasons. I think it was different than the way that they came up short in Calgary. And what I mean by that is a pair of plays that you isolate on its own. You take that out of there, and the game's much different. And I also think Bo Levi Mitchell, though he had 1 interception, I think he had some decent quarterback play across the board there. So, no, I don't think that 9th place prediction is anything to think too heavily about.
Yeah, and I think those rankings, it's kind of beneficial for the Ticats right now, because it's one of those things where it at least gets them a little bit fired up internally. Right? Because, Luke, I remember anytime those rankings would come out, we'd all talk about, like, what do these people know with these rankings? What do these people know? But then if you came out and you weren't number 1 or you were last, all of a sudden that's all people are talking about. So players definitely listen to it and look at it. But at this point right now, it's, they go, oh, look, we'll prove these guys wrong, right? So it's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. But yeah. I agree completely with Luke where, the game in Calgary, although frustrating and didn't go the way the Ticats wanted, there was a ton of good stuff that happened. So, it might be 9th on the power ranking, but I'm sure internally they're picking out the good things that happened and just trying to fix the small things that they probably could have tried to look at.
Yeah, pretty frustrating in the rankings when Ottawa, who hasn't played a game, is ranked higher than the Tiger Cats. But we'll see. Saskatchewan's ranked number 2, so that could really give those rankings people a test next week if the Tiger Cats get that victory on Sunday at home against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So you guys both talked about the loss to Calgary. Let's get into some of the specifics on things that you liked from the Tiger Cats in that 32-24 loss. Mike, why don't you start?
I like James Butler. That's who I liked. He, I know, led the CFL in rushing this week, did unbelievably well. But what stands out the most is he was over 8 yards a carry, and he had the least amount of rushing attempts. So the Ticats had the least amount of rushing attempts. So what that goes to show me is that if you lean on James Butler, and we've said this, guys, this happens all the time, right? We talk about how often the Ticats should lean on James Butler, and it's going to be no different this year. And listen to an interview that Bo Levi did with Milty over there. He even said, he's like, I could have found James Butler on a couple more checkdowns, which would have gotten him more yards. James Butler is going to be the way this offense goes, and that's one of those shining points where, the more touches you can get a guy like that, the more explosive this offense is going to be, and the more ultimately it will help out a guy like Bo Levi Mitchell and those receivers, because you just won't know what to game plan for. What
did you like, Luke?
Yeah, I certainly agree. James Butler, he was the player of the game for our broadcast for the Ticats Audio Network, and he, that was a dominating run game, and the offensive line, I think that, we saw Bo get pressured a little bit more than certainly he would have liked, and certainly Ticat fans would hope for. And without a run game to complement a passing game, the offensive line, their duty on any game night becomes much more difficult too. And so you have these young tackles, and you've got to continue to have James Butler be productive, because it's going to help them settle into this season and get used to the CFL rush, get used to their responsibilities on the end there, and I expect we will see that improve. And so James Butler is going to be crucial, to building into the pass game as well. I actually was pleased to add to the James Butler. That's on the pro list of the pros and cons of week 1. To add to James Butler's performance, I think a lot of what Bo did can get put on the pros category. So, speaking to that pass rush, I thought Bo moved pretty well in keeping his eyes downfield. I thought he escaped the pocket pretty fluidly, and he kept the ball high, kept his eyes downfield. I think we saw some good throws as he was trying to navigate that, and when he was able to have time and stay in the pocket, I think we saw just good quarterback play. He's going to want to take that one. He's going to want to take the interception back. I think that was a missed throw from him, and maybe one or two others here and there. And apart from that, I think that I really liked watching Bo play. I just want him to make decisions that are going to help him stay healthy, for as much as the player can control that for themselves. Quarterbacks can, the best they can do is slide when it comes to control of your own injuries, right? So I want to see him control those variables as best he can. But I'm excited to watch another Bo Levi Mitchell week this week, and to see the passing game grow as well.
Wouldn't you be shocked if he takes another hit when he's got an opportunity to slide after what happened in that game?
Yeah, and because he kind of came out okay, there was a scare. They had to bring, Claire Toffmeyer and everybody onto the field, and kind of, or he got flagged, from the third party or the league review. So I think it was maybe a little, but he's okay. So there's a little warning there, like, hey, you got to be a little smarter than that, and if you can learn your lessons without having to miss games or miss time, well, great. So yeah, I hope and think that he will.
So to back up, Boley, go ahead, Mike.
I have a question quick, because I saw it in the game. And why is it so receivers, running backs, they get hit all the time like that, right? And are able to kind of dodge those blows and whatnot. Why does it seem like a quarterback, almost any one of them, except for maybe those strictly running quarterbacks, why do they just get hit so hard in the open field? Like, is it just because they're not used to getting hit like that? It blows my mind every time.
Is it like a cultural like sort of sensitivity for quarterbacks because they think they're going to get taken care of? You know, like they think that they're going to like there's going to be a little less at the end there. I don't know. I wonder. I also think that Bo sort of who was the player? It was Rose and it was Judge for Calgary. That and as he kind of braced for the one without seeing the other. So sometimes weird things like that happen too. And if you're not totally used to it, I think honestly, Daly, I think it happens so frequently that a quarterback is still making the decision whether he wants to slide or not, and he gets tackled. You know, like because everyone. I mean, you could imagine being a quarterback because you or I never slid. Like, just wasn't part of the thing. You could run out of bounds if you were close enough and if that made sense, but that really I felt like that wasn't really, I'd never really had, it was always you're running until you get tackled. That's just like the way, obviously, right? Well, I think a quarterback is almost like stuck in indecision until all of a sudden it was too late. And honestly, indecision is the key, or is the king of injuries. That will get you hurt in not quarterback aside, just in sports. You know, you think about the way that injuries happen across athletics. It's like getting caught in a moment of indecisiveness for one reason or another. I think that's it. I think we just figured it out, actually. You know, we just talked our way right to the answer. Quarterbacks really are, I think it's indecisiveness into the slide.
I want to throw this back to you, Mike, because as a defensive player, you see a quarterback running around and nobody near him. You have a chance to lay a big lick on a quarterback. Don't you think defensive guys maybe give a little extra when they see that opportunity?
I think so, but the problem is when you're running around, it's the exact same thing like what Luke said. There's like this indecision in the defensive mindset as well, because you're like, you've seen time and time again, if you commit to a tackle and the quarterback slides, it's a hit, and you can almost guarantee that flag's going to come out, right? I think the other thing too is because of that, you're really kind of just trying to guide the person to the ground, especially if it's quarterback, because you're assuming the sense. But no, running backs were the ones that I felt, or receivers were the ones that I felt got hit the worst, because they'd have a guy dragging onto them and still try to stay up, and you could tee off and light the guy up. But anytime you see a quarterback in the open field, usually if you try to give a little extra, you either get a flag or you end up just whiffing on the tackle completely, just because you're trying to, for lack of a better word, kill the guy that's running the ball.
Yeah, I want to back up Luke's point on Bo Levi Mitchell. So he had 27 completions. That's the most he's had as a Tiger Cat. Started 6 games last year, played in 6 games last year. 300 yards passing, second most as a Tiger Cat. 36 yards rushing in the game. That's the most rushing yards he's had in a season in the past 5 seasons. So he did it in game 1. So... Wow. It's almost the.
I thought you misstated that stat, actually. Most in a season, he already has. Wow. He had a couple of very well timed runs too. Like there was some there were some drive changing runs that he decided to keep on, which was smart, well timed.
Yeah, for sure. So he go ahead, Mike.
And to be honest, like he was getting out. He could have had more yards running. Right, way more. We saw the game
if he didn't slide.
That's right. But he was out of the pocket, and I thought that pro list. Yeah, Luke, we were talking about his running, but him being able to run and throw the ball on the run, like you don't really think of Bo Levi Mitchell to be able to do that. But after that game, it's like okay, he has this in his bag whenever he wants it, and. And RJ, you said 27 completions and only 1 interception. I know people are kind of hanging on that interception, but when you put 27 completions out there, that's a lot of throws. If you're throwing that much in a game, one of those things is going to happen every once in a while. So that's a pretty good game by Bo Levi Mitchell.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it was a loss. Tiger Cats only had 7 points through the first 3 quarters, then scored 17 in the fourth quarter. So that's another positive that the offense seemed to get going a little bit as the game went on, but it was a loss. So Calgary's a tough place to play. We talked about that last week on Ticats this week. What would you like to see the Tiger Cats improve on for the game against Saskatchewan on Sunday, Luke?
We've talked about the interception and got to get better there. But I think penalties is a place to focus too. And there was some really poor timing with penalties too. The first offensive play of the game, for one, and that was a pre-snap penalty. So that's stuff that as a head coach, Daly, think back to the guys that we had coaching, just like the fury and confusion of a head coach when his team gets a pre-snap penalty to start the game. It's just like, total loss of confidence in the
start the season.
Yeah. So you got to fix things like that. And the special teams, some special teams error. I guess I would have to say that special teams across the board, you'd hope to see production increased. Don't think we had a satisfying return game. And you want a guy like Lawrence Woods to have a couple chances to take off, and a couple opportunities to break open on some returns. So I would love to see that increase at the home opener.
What about you, Mike? What would you like to see Tiger Cats learn from game one?
Well, I know internally they're going to be talking a lot about that defense, right? I mean, first 5 possessions were a score. Now, positives of it is they were field goals, right? And to keep a team to that many field goals, especially early on, that'll win you some games down the road. But the problem is it was long drives that defense kept giving up, 4 points to be scored. So it wasn't like it was a turnover in their own end, which on that interception it was. But everything else was, had them pinned back there, had an opportunity to go 2-0, maybe even 4-0, right, after give up 1 first down, let's say, get off the field, and then give that offense a time to get a short field, right? Or give that return game, like Luke was saying, some opportunity to go score. But you just didn't really see it defensively. You know what I mean? There wasn't a ton of big plays being made. That one ball got punched out. But that was, that's a minuscule play in the grand scheme of what you want to be doing on defense. So defensively, they have to clean up those long drives and hold the opponent's offense a bit. And I agree with Luke. I thought, Lawrence Woods, they did their job, but it's, you never really want to just see a special teams kind of have a wash, right? And after that missed field goal return, we're lucky to get him. The Ticats were lucky to get him out of bounds before he scored, but that's one of those plays where if you miss a long field goal like that, I mean, Luke and I have been a part of plenty of them that you need to score those plays. So they saved themselves on that one.
Well, I remember Luke's call on that as the field goal was missed. I was calling it, and you said, they got to cover this. Yeah. As soon as he touched that football, it was like you knew something was going to happen.
Yeah, long field goals. I've seen Speedy B for the Ticats, return so many missed long field goals, and it was always like an alarm went off on both sides of the ball. Like Jeff Reinbolt was big into making sure that the coverage team has to really, you got to flip gears very quick because the field goal team is so used to the field goal being good that you can set your pass set and your drop step and kind of get in form the pocket for the field goal kick, and then you can kind of watch the ball go in and kind of the play's over usually. And if it's a miss, an alarm has to go off for all those guys because you have a huge field to cover and you're set up poorly to do so. You're right, because you're in a tight formation, right? You have to fan out like a kickoff. But you're not set to do that, and you've got the wrong bodies on the field for it because you had to pass that. So it's a really return advantageous moment in a football game, and so Calgary took advantage of it. And Daly was one of the You're one of the guys who. Mike Daly, to be honest, and interestingly, I see Mike Daly as very similar to a special teams player named Steve Tasker, actually, because Mike Daly had an ability that I know that my dad had in the NFL, that he was Daly, you could flip the probability of a play. Like Daly was so mentally ahead of what was going to happen, and he could so see where you were outmanned in something that he would make up the loss for it. He would stay back and cover the area. He would catch up where nobody else was there to be on track with that. So you got to have guys whose alarms can go off at the right time, who know how vulnerable you are or how advantageous a situation is for you.
Well, thanks, Luke. Does that mean I'm invited over for family dinners now with Steve?
Yeah, parents' summer party this weekend. Actually, you're coming, bud.
No, but just to reiterate Luke's point, just so people kind of understand why they're at such a disadvantage, is because on field goal teams, and why you're going to keep seeing this, is they have a bunch of offensive linemen out and a couple defensive linemen, because you have to protect and you have to make sure the kick gets off. They maybe have 3 to 4 people they trust to make a tackle in the open field on those teams, right? One of those being the holder, sometimes it having to be a kicker, and then maybe 2 guys on the outside. So that's why those are so scary, and hopefully the Ticats, like they have in the past, can take advantage of when teams start missing some field goals. Those have to be touchdowns.
It is interesting you say that, Mike, because the guy who made the tackle, saved the touchdown, was Brendan Bordner, the rookie offensive tackle, and he ran a long way to make sure he was the last guy. If he didn't push the Calgary player out of bounds, then it probably would have been a touchdown, and it wouldn't have been as close of a football game. There were some drops. You could argue that there could have been 2 touchdowns in that game. You never know how things play out, but if every ball is caught, that would be amazing. There were some drops. There were some drops in the preseason. Luke, we talked about it. Your 35 touchdowns, or 38 or 45 or whatever it was. 3 1,000-plus yard receiving seasons. You didn't have many drops, but is there something a receiver can do, or is there something you did if you were kind of in a bit of a rut?
Yeah, and I can think of some drops, including I had a corner route where the at Tim Hortons Field, in the southeast corner, we were going towards the mountain and against BC, and the defender had fallen down, so I was alone. Like I was on maybe the 15 or 20 yard line, but there was nobody there. I would have just caught it and walked in the end zone, and I dropped a pass like all by myself right through my hands. And we actually won that game without scoring a touchdown. We kicked 6 field goals that game. Justin Medlock. It was 18-15. It was field goals against field goals, and so we won. But I remember and just thinking, you sort of feel like it could have been another huge play that you made, and we won that game. So it's different if you lose, and it counts too. And I surely had those plays as well, but. I was big on the jugs machine. I liked a tennis ball machine. So it shoots out tennis balls that you catch, and it's actually great to catch them 2 hands. You think you catch a tennis ball, you would naturally catch it with 1 hand because it's so small, but it forces you to keep your hands together to catch a tiny, a smaller object like a tennis ball. And so a football looks big and slow when you're catching tennis balls. So I would do physical things like that for sure. I would juggle tennis balls and just catch them to myself, bouncing them off the ground and stuff. I would certainly do that. We had a great teammate, Matt Coates, who he and I would throw balls to the wrong shoulder, so we'd have to over adjust to catch a ball. And we did that all the time. So just physical, actual, literal practice goes a long way. I've always been a big fan of a drill we called frontside bullets, which is just what it sounds like. A quarterback is throwing a pretty fast ball, and you're running at the quarterback. So imagine a curl route where the ball's coming directly at you, and that's actually kind of a difficult. You can, if you're not used to it, the perception's hard and it's coming fast, but it's not moving horizontally. So you really got to keep your eyes focused on it, and we do a ton of those. That goes a long way, and then there's the mental part of things. You've got to take the field with a positive energy. Mike and anybody who's played professional sports will attest. If you don't have the right energy on the field, if you're playing just just filled with fear of messing up, then you'll drop the ball. And I remember that too. I remember times where it seems very difficult to catch the ball because you're kind of afraid to drop it, or you're afraid to do something wrong. And then I remember times where the game's so natural to you that you don't even, it's like, it almost feels like you couldn't drop the ball. Like it couldn't happen. Like it just is going to stick to your hands, and it does in a lot of those times too. So, there's the mental and the physical, and you got to work on both.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Was there ever an incident where you dropped one and it made you so mad you just said, I'm not doing that again? It's not happening.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think if I had sort of back-to-back drops, and I'm sure that I did. not even I don't even mean back-to-back catches, but it's like multiple games with consecutive drops, and it doesn't come to mind. But I certainly had, you go in ruts where just like nothing, things don't really seem to be going very well or go very right, and I would get out of those. More like it was on the mental side, that I really was going to go out there with a smile and sort of enjoy and just love playing football, and just somehow you got to get back to renewing that sense when the season grinds on and when things aren't going very well. So everybody's a little bit different there. I was just a big positive. I was a big positive motivation player as opposed to sort of negative or angry motivation.
One thing stands out, turnovers in the game. You always want to win the turnover battle. There weren't many in the game. You guys talked about it. The Bo Levi Mitchell interception. Demario Houston picked it off. Tiger Cats didn't have a takeaway in that first game, which it's one game, not a big deal, but you go to the preseason as well. They didn't have any takeaways. So, preseason teams are working on things. You'd think there'd be something there. Mike, you had those 8 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, couple of forced fumbles in there. You knew how to take the ball away. Is there anything a defense can do to create turnovers?
I said this at the post game, and I think it fits really well with the Ticats defense right now. It's a confidence thing. It's one of these things where a lot of these guys out there on defense, I mean, we saw it. There are a ton of new names, right? Ton of new names. Yeah, and then you look at Richard Leonard getting hurt in the middle of the game. So now Dexter Lawson, who's been playing at field corner all camp long, now has to take probably, maybe a second day of reps at field half, which are vastly different in terms of, how you're playing the defense and what you're seeing and what's in front of you. You can't make any plays when you're just trying to remember what your job is and remember what your reads are supposed to be. Am I looking at this receiver or am I looking at the other receiver? And okay, we're in man-to-man, but now am I trying to take away all of the inside breaking routes, or am I trying to take away all the outside breaking routes? All that's going on in your head to the point now all of a sudden the ball is snapped and you're like, okay, just don't get beat, right? Kind of like what Luke was saying. It's a confidence thing where you go out there and if you just know you're going to do well and you're excited to play and you're excited to make plays, then you'll go and get the ball and those turnovers will happen. You'll punch at the ball while you're making a tackle because you've done it 1,000 times, right? You'll go for the ball instead of just trying to knock it down because you've done it 1,000 times. All these new guys that are in there are just trying to do their job correctly right now and be in the right place, let alone when that ball goes up in the air, how they're thinking of, maybe trying to mess with the quarterback's head or, like I said, punch at the ball on a tackle. So these guys just have to get a little more experience under their belt to when they can go and start making some plays. That being said, there are some players on that defense. You look at a guy like Stavros, who you would kind of lean toward to make a play. Kyle Wilson's gotten enough snaps now where he can kind of go make a big play. So I think they're going to need some of their guys to kind of carry that load at the beginning of the season until they can catch some people up and get Jamal Peters back off injured reserve.
Yeah, he'll help. I thought Stavros was going to have one early in the game with that knockdown. Ball just didn't stay up long. It's still a great play by Stavros to make that play. Home opener is on Sunday against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Last year, Tiger Cats at home were 3-6. Them and Calgary were the only teams to make the playoffs with a below 500 record at home. So what I take from that is you want to host a playoff game, you got to be above 500 at home. So maybe 2023 was an anomaly. We'll find out on Sunday if the Tiger Cats can get off to a good start. It's going to be electric. There's that new Stipley area with all kinds of food and drink and retail and concerts, and it's going to be just a fantastic atmosphere. The fans are going to be fired up, excited to see the team, excited how the Tiger Cats maybe can carry some momentum from that fourth quarter over against the Roughriders on Sunday. You guys played. I only see it from a fan's perspective. What's it like? What's it like a home opener at Tim Hortons Field, Luke?
Quarter one is very different from when you're when you're in Calgary. I'd almost say that you get into the game and a game is a game, you've sort of brought your energy to match the game's energy. But quarter one is very different at home. And that first drive, I think it comes a little easier. The home field advantage is felt right then. I mean, your game prep is a little bit more sort of in your comfort zone. You know, you don't have to. There's not all the busing in the hotels and the schedules, and you kind of are waking up and going into your own home, and it's a nice feeling, and that carries into that start of the game. And as an away team, you have your guard up. You're kind of like a soldier in enemy territory, and you have to sort of remind yourself to start great. When you're at home, the great start comes a little bit more natural. So you got to hope to take advantage of it too. And it's across all sports. You know, it's hard to get back from behind on the road. And the inverse of that is, you know, that's because it's easier to start at home, and so you kind of want to get that and take advantage of it. And RJ, we talked at the top of our broadcast in Calgary. We talked about, I think the first game of the season or early in the season. Some games, the best Grey Cups. It's best play against best play, and which team can rack up all the best plays in that game, touchdowns, big catches, all that. And early in the season, it's almost like who can limit their mistakes is better. Who's going to be the better team at making the fewest mistakes? And I think the Ticats need to still sort of kind of dwell in that space too. Yeah, you want to go do your thing, but you got to start right by not having penalties to start the game and not turning the ball over.
Was home opener any different for you, Mike, than a regular home game?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. The home opener, right? There's the typical ones. A home opener, like Labor Day, any playoff game at Tim Hortons Field. There was this like just energy that you got as a player that elevated everything. And I mean, that's pregame when you run out and you're doing a little bit of warm-ups. You're seeing people come in and, you know, they're yelling your name and they're cheering and they're getting excited. And then like right on kickoff, everyone's cheering. It's a different feeling being at home than it is away. And then in terms of how it affects a game is we talk about complementary football all the time, right? So if we look at last week, you know, when the defense did get a stop, the offense couldn't get going, right? Or if the offense ended up driving down the field and scored a touchdown, the defense couldn't get a stop. Or if it was a big play on special teams, whatever it was, you know, the offense then couldn't pick it back up. And I think at home, when you have the buzz of fans, that helps because you get this boost from momentum. Listen, I don't understand it. I don't understand how it works. I don't understand momentum because each play is different than the other. But it's one of these things where each player feeds off of what happened before. And I remember multiple times where we'd be playing at home and let's say, you know, defense, we'd go out there, we'd get a pick. The fans would be going crazy. And it almost seemed almost every other time, it was like 2 plays later, the offense scores a touchdown. And then the fans are going even crazier. And then it would be like a kickoff and they'd fumble the kickoff. And then the team's pretty much given up at that point, just based on how excited the fans were been. So I think complimentary football helped that way just because you feed off that momentum. But again, I don't know. If there's somebody that understands it, I'd love for someone to explain how that works in football. But you can feel it as a player.
Yeah, I had a great chat with last year or the year before, and he was talking about that. Momentum is a thing in football. You can't quantify it, but it is definitely there. When that ball starts rolling your way, it continues to go. Luke, with the home opener, did you warm up extra long on those days?
Don't need any warm-up. Actually, you're talking to two guys who and I didn't even know this about Mike when we were playing, but apparently Mike is like myself, who I could not stand warming up. By the end of my career, I was like, I would have shown up 20 minutes before we kicked off if I had a choice to. And as everyone knows, when you've come to the games, generally, I mean, I would go out there an hour and a half, usually actually a little bit more than an hour and a half before kickoff to start holding for field goals was my first on-field responsibility. And it's like I've done a whole football practice before we played the game. So for a home opener, if it was in the world of Luke Tasker in my made-up universe, I'm actually late for the game. Probably I'm there for the second series.
I didn't know that, Mike. You were the same.
The exact same. I never understood it. And early on, it was one of these things where, when you weren't sure of what to do and you saw everybody going out and they were doing their warm-ups and running. And so, being a first, second-year player, I'm like, oh, maybe this is what I need to do. I need to go through a whole practice before the game. I'd be exhausted. I had just done like 10 sprints before the game. What am I doing here? So, no, I was like, Luke, if I could be one of those JV football players where I could put my pads on in my car and just show up to the field and walk on, I would have done that. Yeah,
football's so fascinating because there's so many different characters and personalities on a team and body types, right? Because you don't hockey players generally, or relative to football, a hockey body is the same. A soccer body is the same. Basketball, football has the whole spectrum of the human physique, right? So everyone needs to do something a little different. And across that spectrum, some guys are there like at 6 hours before in hot tubs and like in the weight room with bands, like bands stretching, like stretchy bands, or calves and yoga, and like I was like at a diner like 2 minutes ago, and now Liram Hyralaw, who's looking at me like, why aren't you dressed? We're going out in 10 minutes, and I'm like, dude, chill. Like I got plenty of time.
I still got 5 more minutes till I have to start getting ready.
Sounds like I've got 7 minutes until I need to tape my ankles then, Liram.
Hey, Saskatchewan worries me, guys. I'm watching that game. They're down 13 points in the fourth quarter. I'm thinking, okay, Edmonton, that's pretty interesting. Chris Jones against a former team he coached. That's probably a big win for him. And all of a sudden, Trevor Harris and Sean Bain Jr. take over, and boom, boom, boom. Riders make it look easy. They put up 21 points in that fourth quarter, end up going into Edmonton and getting the victory. A.J. Ouellette's their running back, and he's got a history at Tim Hortons Field. So if there's any Ticats fans who didn't follow the transaction wire in the offseason, that's where A.J. Ouellette is now. So he will be at Tim Hortons Field on Sunday. We don't know if the Thor hammer will be there, but it's a hot seller in Regina for the Roughriders, the stuffed Thor hammer in green. So I'd have to think that he's got something up his sleeve. Is this Saskatchewan offense better than the Calgary offense? What I mean by that, Mike, is the Tiger Cats defense in for an even tougher test this week?
It sure looks like it. I mean, the way we were talking about Jake Mayer before the game, right, kind of being that game manager that we kept hearing, and he goes out there and looks like an all-star, right? And Trevor Harris looks like he's back in form at Saskatchewan, and Sean Bain Jr. That was incredible. AJ Ouellette is going to be a problem, and he was a hard runner, and it's just a matter of time until he gets going. But listen, I think it's one of these things where Saskatchewan had such an emotional game week 1 where they come back, they end up winning the game, that takes a toll going into that next week. And then vice versa, the Ticats defense would have been pretty upset with themselves this entire prep week. So yeah, there is a better offense that they're facing this week for sure. I'll stand by that, even watching what Calgary did. But I think the defense is going to be a lot more prepared and kind of looking internally more at like, okay, listen, we need to step our game up, because I know how that conversation is going in that room, and it's, hey, we lost that game against Calgary, right? The reason we lost that game was because of how we played on defense. So we got to learn how to shut these guys down. And when I look at Saskatchewan, the first thing I saw, and maybe this is just the game plan mind coming back out, but yes, Sean Bain Jr. was good, and they have some good weapons at receiver. AJ Ouellette will be a problem. Trevor Harris, he's always been a guy that can get the ball out quick and, kind of understand what the defense is doing and get it into his playmakers' hands. But anytime he goes deep, that ball looked kind of like a beach ball coming out of his hand. I'm not sure if you guys had watched any of the game or what it looked like, but it kind of reminds me, Luke, of when, Ricky Ray was at the end of his career, where it was like, hey, he's got to throw 10 yards or under. He ended up hitting Sean Bain on some deep ones, but it did not look like one of those balls that was coming out of his hand where it's like, okay, you can rip these things out there. Yeah.
That is interesting, and Ricky Ray won a Grey Cup when he was throwing it that way too. So that's right. you never know.
That's right.
It's hard to compare. I just think I have to say that I was very impressed with Jake Maier and the way that he ran that game against the Ticats last week, and I think. My perspective, not being a defensive guy, Mike, was I thought that Mark Washington was being creative. I do not think he took the mindset of, hey, simplify it for my young players out there, simplify it and kind of let them go play, knowing what they're doing. I don't think he took off a mental load there, and I'm not saying right or wrong. My impression is I saw the blitzes, I saw the disguised coverages fall, and then moving out after the snap back in and dropping into zones, and we saw that the sort of the botched coverage for the touchdown there, where some people were playing a version of man, and the team dropped into a 3 double cut, Mike, like you discussed, and so we just saw they were running some real mid-season defense. They were running some nuanced stuff, and sort of imperfectly, and Jake Maier was able to find his guy so many times, and he threw well even when they brought pressure, and then he found his guy when they dropped into a standard sort of zone shell. And so I say all that to get to the point that I think the Ticats defense this week, they're not in meeting rooms with that sort of foggy, like, what went wrong? I don't understand, because I remember in the 0-8 year, Mike, in 2017, I remember a little bit of that feeling, like we weren't scoring points, and like everyone was like, I don't know what we should do different. Like maybe we're just not good. I don't know. Like it's like I can't pick a thing to talk about. That's not. I don't see the Ticat defense this week as being in this sort of that fogginess. It's almost like you put on any play and it's like, hey, field half. You weren't running the right coverage here. Look what happened and look what you were supposed to do. Hey, you were supposed to have outside leverage here and you were inside, and look what happened. Hey, we lined up here. We showed cover 0 and we were trying to drop into a cover 3, and you didn't get the call. Why didn't you get the call? And so it's just like checklist on checklist of things you're like, that's easy fixes. And each practice you go out there when you're coming out of a game like that, you leave a practice thinking, okay, Here's the 10 things that we need to fix, and 4 of them we did today. We fixed it today for this coming week. And so you played against a quarterback who operated very well, and you made your own mistakes. And so I think it's a game where you can kind of defensively, you're saying, shoot, we're going to see 175% increase this week, just because we're smarter now, just because we know. So it'll be different. I think it's when you shrug off very easily and you have confidence knowing that you've made the easy changes.
So going into the game 1 matchup, I'm excited to see is James Butler. He was the only running back to rush for 100 yards. He had 119 yards rushing. Riders only allowed Edmonton 39 yards rushing, so they allowed the fewest yards. So out of week 1, you got best versus best. Can James Butler put up some good numbers against this Riders D? And is that maybe a key that he has to for this offense to be effective against Saskatchewan, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. But I'm curious because I want to throw this to Luke a little bit here is, okay, Luke, you're going into a game like this, offensively at least, where you say, okay, listen, they're very good against the run. From what we've seen, they stopped James Butler. They could possibly stop James Butler. Do you go into a game there where you're like, okay, we're just going to do our thing, and we know how effective James Butler was, or are we going to say, hey, you know what, they are very good at stopping the run, so hey, Bo Levi, here's the reins, you're going to have to win this game. I've always kind of wondered that because you see it pan out, but I've never really been in those type of meeting rooms for long periods of time, so I'm curious on your take.
Yeah, so, offense is sort of a we're going to do what we do first, and then we'll learn about their defense. But we're going to, the offense is trying to impose its strengths on a defense. And the Ticats have got to be feeling really good about James Butler, especially not having known what to expect coming out of preseason health-wise. And he apparently felt very healthy in Calgary. And with that offensive line, you have a veteran core and rookie perimeter. Fill those guys with confidence in how they're moving the ball on the ground, and let them experience that again in the first part of this game. And I'm telling you, I was always Mike Filer and Revenberg, Chris Van Zyl. These guys were always when the years where we were like passing like 90% of the time. These guys they complain so bad, and they're already prone to whining that it hurt. It's very hard to pass set. And if the D line knows that you're pass setting, it is a much harder job. If the D line has to play to the possibility that you're going to come off the ball, and to simplify that, in a run game, the offensive lineman's first step is forward. They can go and block aggressively and attack a defensive player to block. In a passing set, they're moving backwards. They cannot go forward at the start of the ball, and so it's much harder job. And so you got to get those offensive linemen into the game, confident, get the young tackles going, and that run game helps with that so much. And then the best players are going to get the ball. So if James Butler is if that's the way that the offense is setting the tone, then they're going to rely on it. And if you look back to Calgary, just take the drops out of the wide receiver core, the two long ones, which were game changers. Everything would be different if those were catches. Take those two, and then there was two or three others in shorter passes. Just make those drops completions, and all of a sudden you have a run game and a pass game that we would be looking right now that were really complementing each other, a very complementative offense. And so I don't know. I think it's almost like I said about the defense. Maybe that's just some easy low hanging fruit that you're going to be able to fix this week.
So the Tiger Cats, we talked about Levi Mitchell. He looked good. Taylor Powell, he had a great rookie season. Harrison Frost looked good in the preseason, but the Tiger Cats are, Ed Hervey and his staff, still busy. They're bringing in players. Taulia Tagovailoa, the brother of Tua, is now with the Tiger Cats. He's been signed to the practice roster. He's the Big Ten's all-time leader in passing yards and completions. I thought this was interesting. He's tied with Scott Milanovich for the most passing touchdowns in a season in Maryland history. So he's got some ties with Milanovich, and he had a great college career. What are your thoughts on that signing for the Tiger Cats? Mike, you want to go first, or Luke?
Well, let me go first.
That's what I meant to say.
No, I'm really excited. It's a fun name, and what a great college career. And I think he's got a great skill set, passing and running, which is kind of the quintessential, like, hey, you're going to be great in the CFL kind of skill set. I mean, tons of quarterbacks who have sort of a balance there make their way up here. And it's not a guarantee of success, right? I mean, it's got to go beyond that, but seems to have that sort of balanced ability there. And I think it would be a cool relationship to see the most veteran in the league, Levi Mitchell, with a young quarterback, maybe a little bit different type of players, but to see that balance, I'm excited for it. It could be a great sign.
Yeah, I the one thing that makes it a little bit tougher is obviously his skill set is very, very good, right? You don't lead the Big Ten in passing touchdowns for no reason, right? So he does have that skill set that's there. I've said this multiple times, and Taylor Powell was kind of the wild card on this, maybe Chad Kelly a little bit as well, but to come in your first year and be a successful CFL quarterback when you've been playing American-style football, it's a tough thing to do, right? And what makes it a little bit harder when it's a mid-season signing, although only past week one, he's not going to get any reps in camp with the Ticats offense, right? Most of what he's going to be doing is getting in there and doing some scout team looks. So expect this to be a long-term transition for him to come in and make some plays, but that might be, that might serve as better for him, because it's one of those things where he will get to learn under, like what Luke said, Bo Levi Mitchell, and learn the offense in a meeting room perspective. And yeah, throw some Ticat offense. And when I say Ticat offense, I mean in practice, that's going up against, for this week, it'd be against the Saskatchewan defense and that scout team. But for the most part, he'll be throwing some scout team looks. So he'll be Trevor Harris this week, right? for lack of a better word, and get some of those throws in so he can get used to the game. But tougher a little bit when it's midseason, but expect that to be a long-term play.
Again, that's Taulia Tagovailoa, who is signed to the practice roster for the Tiger Cats. So the next game is Sunday, Tim Hortons Field against the Roughriders. It's also Father's Day. How are you guys doing Father's Day? You're both fathers. Do you celebrate Saturday? Do you bring the family? What are the plans, Luke?
I think my crew is going to come up for the game at Tim Hortons Field. My wife and sons, and then probably some other family members too, just to enjoy another great day at Tim Hortons Field.
How about you, Mike?
Well, this sounds even worse. I should have went first on this one, Luke. My family, my family's taking off. They're heading up to the beach for the weekend, so I'll be at Tim Hortons Field and hanging out, maybe with just the other fathers that are there. But yeah, Luke, we should talk about this before, and I'll go first next time.
Sorry, we'll
to
chat
make
before.
that a little smoother. Yeah.
But isn't the best thing as a father making your family happy, and they're going to have a great time, and you're busy anyway. You got to help the fans. Let us know what's happening at the game.
That's true.
Oh yeah. They'll be completely fine. They'll be having way more fun than me waiting for a game to start.
Well, excellent stuff, guys. Again, home opener, new Stipley experience at Tim Hortons Field. Get there. If you get a ticket, you can go down, check it out. All kinds of food and beverage and entertainment, and great place to watch the football game. It's renovated. It'll be fantastic to see. Pre-game show at 6 o'clock. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff, so the pre-game show starts at 6 with Mike Daly and Bubba O'Neill, and then at 7 o'clock, Luke and me will have the call of the second game of the season, the home opener, and you can catch the game on ticats.ca/listen. Luke Tasker, Mike Daly, excellent stuff. Thanks for this today, and looking forward to Sunday and what happens in that one.
Thanks, RJ. Mike, thanks. Good stuff, guys. Looking forward to it.
This has been the Ticats This Week, built by Turkstra. Whatever your next home project is, build it better with Turkstra. Visit TurkstraLumber.com today. Like and follow the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast content, and get a deeper understanding of your Hamilton Tiger Cats.